Would you believe it if I told you this game came out back in 2010? And it's an indie title. Jesus, just look at this. So this is Limbo. If the presentation grabs you right off the bat, then yeah, I'm not blaming you. The graphics alone will suck you in. That, along with some of the most eerie music and haunting atmospheres I've ever experienced in a game, indie or otherwise, makes this stand apart from what's out there. It came out in 2010 and was developed by a company called Playdead. I don't have a ton of experience with indie titles, but this is something you just don't see in a lot of games. And it's basically a 2D side-scroller, but visually it's just stunning and unique. I don't want to keep harping on the game's visuals, but it really is a game that needs to be experienced, if for nothing else, for its overall dark and mysterious aesthetic. Okay, calling it a 2D platformer is a bit of a stretch. It's actually a 2D puzzle platformer. That means that while, yes, the key gameplay elements are walking and jumping, you won't be killing anything, although there are plenty of things to kill you. A giant spider, arrow-throwing natives, machinery, electricity, and traps. Lots of traps. The majority of things that kill you are just well-placed traps that you'll never be able to anticipate during your first playthrough. That's one of the ways the dark, film noir graphics complements the gameplay. A lot of things are so well hidden in the environment that the only way to know they're there is to die a few times, or a few hundred times. Yeah, this was my second playthrough, but it was a while since I played, and I dang near forgot where everything was. So yes, most of this game is trial and error. And if constantly dying in order to memorize where certain traps are seems unfair to you, keep in mind that you will always regenerate right before the thing that killed you, and there are unlimited continues. And you can save wherever you want, so it's really balanced in that respect. In a strange way, the game reminds me of Dragon's Lair. Yes, that old Laserdisc-based game where you had to help Dirk the Daring make it through the castle to rescue the scantily dressed Princess Daphne from the evil dragon Singe. It reminds me of that game because the only way to get good at it was to die over and over again until you could actually memorize all the right button commands. And this is not a game for the faint of heart. It doesn't hold your hand. Every individual puzzle will have you scratching your head, wondering what series of things you have to interact with in order to make it to the next screen. It's really clever in that way. Now, I don't tend to gravitate toward super challenging games. Thinking doesn't really come naturally to me, unfortunately. It took a lot of willpower not to just look up some walkthrough on the internet. But as with most challenging things, once you figure out how to do it, you'll feel accomplished. These puzzles can get pretty elaborate. Take this spider, for example. This is literally during the first few screens of the game. You can't just walk up to this guy. He'll murder you if you even look at him weird. But what's this? Back here a tick, I found this conspicuously placed bear trap just hanging from this tree branch. Obviously, it must be there for a reason, right? Well, how do I get it down? I can't climb. Ah, I see. If I dance around a bit, the trap falls from the tree. Can I drag it? Yes, I can. What if I drag this trap over to the spider and... There! See, the game is really just a series of what if I did this moments. It'll constantly have you guessing what you can use and how to use your environment to solve the next puzzle. And late in the game, there are some real mind benders. A lot of it is physics-based. There are sections that play around with gravity or that want you to push certain buttons on the right order to get platforms to move a certain way. And I'm not going to lie, some of the puzzles are downright frustrating, especially during the last few moments of the game. Like this section, for example. There are these arrows in midair that control what direction you can fly off to. I didn't know that you actually had to activate them while you passed them. I just thought like an idiot that once you pass by the arrow, you'd automatically start going in that direction. To my credit, the game doesn't explain this. The first time I activated one of these arrows, it was purely by accident, so yes, I did have to look up a guide for this specific puzzle, but I tried for quite a while before I got stumped. What's so great about this experience, aside from its atmosphere, its gloomy world, and its unique puzzles, is that for such a simple premise, it does a great job of sucking you in. There are no opening videos or text boxes explaining what happens. The first screen of the game shows you waking up in this forest or jungle, and that's it. You're just there, on your way. I assumed when I started playing that I was trapped on some kind of island, maybe in hell. I mean, the game is called Limbo. But the few living things you encounter, spiders, natives, a giant fly, feel like things you'd find on a deserted island. Of course, as you get further, the environment changes, and while the game doesn't tell you explicitly what's going on, part of the fun is forming your own conclusions and writing your own story in your head. This is a game where you're the narrator. You get to fill in the gaps, and the game gives you very little information to do that. That's a good thing. The only thing that is certain is that your character's sole motive, aside from getting out of Limbo, is to find his sister. That's it. Just find your sister. And once you find her, guess what? No big finale, no congratulatory screen, just credits. You beat the game and we're out. Simple as that. The game is a bit on the short side, and you could probably beat the whole thing in an afternoon. If this were a full-priced game, then that would be a major complaint, I'm sure. But as an indie title that initially launched on Xbox Arcade for around $10, you'll get your money's worth. It took me probably about 3 hours, maybe more if you factor in all the times I died. And speaking of dying, you will indeed. The game has deaths galore. It's kind of twisted because you're playing as this little kid, but I wouldn't say it's that gory because the kid is always in shadow, and when he dies, he looks like a paper doll.
Looks like a kiddie scissor class has cut it up for a paper doll.
But seriously, this kid gets hacked to shit. Buzzsaws, electricity, falling, drowning, getting stabbed, getting smushed, getting crushed. The developers really had it out for this kid. Then there are these little glowing worm things. I hate these things because you can't avoid them and they force you to walk in one direction until you can figure out how to turn around. Fortunately, they only appear a couple of times in the middle of the game, and solving these specific puzzles wasn't too crazy. Usually you have to find these hanging things that eat the worms, freeing you from their brainwashing abilities. And in order to get turned around, you have to carefully guide your character over to the light where the worm things are forced to turn you around. You're still under their control, but at least you're going in the right direction. The puzzles get a little more involved near the end, as they should. The thing is, it's really hard to get into any kind of flow because the puzzles are just being thrown at you left and right, and you really have to spend time thinking about the best strategy. And if that's not something that comes natural to you, then you just have to do what I did and keep mindlessly pushing on things until something happens and you can move on. It's visually stunning, mostly rewarding, and you probably won't play anything like it, at least from a visual standpoint. If you get a chance, I'd highly recommend it. Thanks for hanging out with me. Bye!